Welcome back. Here we will talk about the object assign. This is one of the important aspect of the ES6. Using object assign, you are doing a lot of things very easily. So what is object assign? Consider an example. You have created some utility and then you are calling that utility. Okay. That utility is taking 5, 6 arguments. Now you are calling that utility. You are just passing only 3 arguments. Okay, you want that if I'm passing 3 argument out of 6, then rest of the 3 arguments should be initialized by default. Okay, so I have written a utility which is accepting 6 variables as an input, and I have if user is not passing some value to that utility while calling, then I will be initializing that by default. Okay, so this is we were doing in the ES5, like if the target value is not there, then I can use the default value from this function itself. Okay, so I have created this default array. So in the ES5, what we were doing, like if you are passing some argument, like just an example, int a. Okay, then here this you created the local variable local a, var a equal to, you will be checking this dot a is having some value, otherwise get the value from whatever you are passing. Okay, this is what you are doing. So this is what you are doing. If you are not passing some value from the while calling the function, then we will be initializing that value with some default value. Okay, so I have these, you are passing these objects. One is a target object and one is the option object. Okay, so what I'm doing here, why we need object assign? Simple example is, what I'm doing is you are calling this function spinner. Okay, so while calling this spinner function, it is taking xyz 3 argument, and it depends on your calling function that you can also pass 1 argument, 2 argument, 3 argument. Okay, in that case, whatever you are not passing, I will be initializing those data with some default values. Okay, so manually in the code I will be checking like var a equal to, I will be checking like, do you have you provided the value a in the argument, otherwise I will be initializing a with some default string. Okay, then I will check the next argument var b equal to, have you passed that argument in the function calling function? No, then I will be initializing that value with some default. So in small functions that is okay, but in the big functions, whenever you are you're passing 5 to 10 arguments, then you will be writing these useless code. You will be checking if you are passing some variable in while calling the function, not then initialize with some default value. So the final solution of this kind of situation is object assign. What it will do, it will always create a new object, checking the default values and checking the target which you have passed. Okay, so consider this function is taking 6 as an argument, and I have initialized all the 6 values with the default, and now you are passing only the 3 arguments. Okay, so rest of the 3 arguments will get default initialization. So in the final object, you will be having 6 arguments, 6 variables. Okay, so what we are checking, if function is passing those values. If function is not passing that value, pick that from the default object. Then checking the second value, if the function is passing that value, otherwise pick that from the default. So in that case, you need to write the 6 line of code, and that is useless. No need to use that. You can just directly write object.assign. What it will do, it will create a target object which will create a final object. It will be checking the default values, default object, and it will be checking the target object which you are passing to this function. Okay, so if there are 6 arguments this function is taking, so all the 6 values will have their default values inside the default object. Okay, now we are creating the new object, just checking that are you passing that value here. If you are passing that value inside the option object, then assign that. If that object is not there inside the option object, then pick that from the default and assign that. Okay, then third value, if that is in the option object, no, then assign that to the default. Some kind of this kind of rule. For this kind of execution, you can write a single line of code to get the output object which actually you are going to use. this is the object which your function is going to use. Some mix of the default values and mix of the past variables. So what it is doing, it is checking option has that value, override all the values with the options values and assign that to here. If the option doesn't have the arguments, then pick that from the default and assign here. Okay, so I hope this is a pretty straightforward. Okay, so like if I'm calling this function, and like here I'm calling this function, and here I am passing only these three values. Like I am passing this target, I am passing these only three values, and there is one more value. You can have a string, whatever you want. So all the three values will be assigned to the default. I mean, this will get overridden. Override 6, because you are explicitly passing, so this will get overridden in the final object, target object. These values will be reflected, but you are not passing this option, so option 1 will be assigned to this final object. I hope now it's clear. So another example is object.assign. What it's doing, it is running from right hand side to left hand side and creating the new object. So object, here we don't have any default, so it will get assigned. Object will be a final object, so a:1 will be the output. Okay, similarly like this simple example, if I take like this, for2, it will check does it have the default initialization. It will going from the right to left. For2 is a unique number, it will not get overridden. Now the output is 4142, then 40. Okay, so you are initializing the same property. So what will the output? 42 will override this one, then 42 will override this one also. It is coming from the right to left. So this is the option you are passing inside the function, and these are the default values. So it will override the for property, output will be this one. Okay, so object.assign we are using for the large functions where you are passing, like a function is taking 10 arguments, you are passing only the 5 arguments. You want to initialize the 5 rest of the argument from the default object. So in that case, you will be writing the 10 line of code to check if the option is having that value or not. Otherwise you will get the value from the default. So you can do that thing in a single line of code. I hope now it is more clear to you. The code is object.assign. This is the target object, this is the default object, and this is the object which you are passing in the function. So if out of 10, if you are passing the 5, then 5 variables will get assigned to the target object. Rest of the 5 it will pick from the default. Okay, so this is object.assign. Thanks everyone.